So, this is the next and final part of The Lost Town of Deepwood, Pennsylvania. I also just wanted to say that my laptop has finally been fixed. They had to replace the entire base, and I guess that's what took so long. But I'm getting it back tomorrow, and I'm hoping I can get my hands on that new game, Evil Within. I'd really love to play it. Also, we just hit 500 subscribers, and I am so happy. Now that I'm getting my laptop back, I'll be able to do a thank you video. So hopefully within the next week I can put one together and upload it. Also, I'll still be reading creepypastas throughout October. So again, if you guys know any scary stories, let me know and I'll try to read them. Coming up next is actually a story written by our own Jay Loki. So I'm going to be reading that next. It's called Woods, and I am so looking forward to reading it. So I think that's it. And so this will be the next and final part of The Lost Town of Deepwood, Pennsylvania. Hope you enjoy it. The statue's stare awarded me with an edge of panic, and I suddenly realized that we needed to leave. We weren't wanted here. I had the sudden feeling that we were trespassing on some sort of hallowed ground. We had found the church, we had the documents proving we had been here, and now it was time to go. I turned to Jamie to tell him so, and could immediately tell that he did not share my feelings. He had been born and bred on these legends, and nothing was going to tear him away from our discovery. I watched him walk over to grab the camera out of my bag. He took pictures of everything he deemed interesting, including the crucifixion statue, much to my unease. I gave him several minutes before I said something. "Jamie, I think we need to leave," I said in a low voice. Jamie stopped and looked up, seeming to remember I was there. "Are you kidding? This is what you came for. We have to bring home evidence. Of all of it. It's going to be dark in half an hour. It's already hard to see in here." "Duh, that's why I'm using flash. Hey, can you get a picture of me next to this creepy Jesus thing?" I guess," I mumbled as I took the camera from him. I didn't even want to look at it, much less photograph it, but if it would help me get him out of here, I was going to stomach it. Jamie wrapped his arms around it just as I snapped the picture. "Don't touch it! Oh crap, why did you touch it?" "There's something off about that thing, Jamie. Can we freaking go now?" "Yeah, fine." Jamie walked over and picked up the backpack as I headed toward the front door. I noticed there was no lock on it. I pushed against the door as hard as I could. It didn't budge. My heart sank. There wasn't even a handle or a knob. It was just a solid piece of wood with strange markings on it, symbols I had never seen before. "Jamie, the door's stuck," I said as I turned around to see him testing a piece of the floor with his foot. "What are you doing?" I asked, hearing the edge of panic in my voice. He was still at the front of the chapel, a foot from the Jesus statue, hopping back and forth from one part of the floor to another. The statue's eyes seemed to be only on him now. "There's something under here. See?" I heard the floorboard creak under his left foot as he put weight on it. "Jamie, don't." "No, it's like under the dirt right here, the floor is hollow." He kneeled down and started digging through the thin layer of dirt. "It's like a trap door or something." And it was indeed a trap door. By the time I had walked the length of the pews, Jamie already had the edges dug halfway out. "Let's just leave it, and your brother and his friends can come back and see what it is. Please, Jamie, I want to go." There was something wrong with this place, terribly wrong, and the thought of spending one more minute here had me on the precipice of an anxiety attack, something I hadn't experienced in over a year. I sat down on the front pew and put my head down. I heard a roaring in my ears, and my breathing grew labored. I had to leave here, even without Jamie. I rocked back and forth for a few minutes as I tried to calm myself down. I would climb out of a window and run, in any direction. It didn't matter. "There's something here, under the church." Jamie's voice sounded a million miles away. By the time I pulled myself together, enough to lift my head, Jamie was knelt next to me, stroking my hair. "I didn't know you were claustrophobic." "At least that's what I think," Jamie said. I better remember the horror I felt as I stared at the hole in the floor. Jamie had opened the trap door. 2 minutes, Jamie had said as he stood up. We go down, we take a couple pictures of whatever's down there, and we come right back up and leave. Just 2 minutes, Katie. That's all I'm asking. I wanted to say no. I intended to, but I felt myself slowly nodding as Jamie pulled me to my feet. To this day, I don't understand why I agreed. But I suppose that it's better that what happened down there didn't happen to Jamie alone. We're going to come back with the story of a lifetime. What if there's gold down there? Or like valuable paintings or gold or something? We would be rich. So rich that your family could stay here. You could buy the house you're living in and come to school with me in September. I managed a small smile. Of all the things someone could think to buy with wealth, Jamie's first thought was to keep me here with him. And he was right. There could be anything down there. And almost all old stuff was valuable. I took a deep breath. Okay, 2 minutes, I agreed. As we leaned over the trapdoor and peered down, the first thing we noticed was an intense heat emanating upwards from the hole. The second was the strangely out-of-place spiral staircase leading into the depths below. Jamie rolled the flashlight over to me with his foot, and I picked it up as he pulled his lighter out of his pocket. Ladies first, he smirked at me. I stared at him slack-jawed. No way. You found this door, you go first. Between the black staircase and the heat, I feel like we're descending directly into hell, and I'm not going first. I crossed my arms and glared at him to reinforce my point. Jamie simply shrugged and stepped onto the staircase. I took several deep breaths as I watched his head disappear into the darkness below. I almost didn't follow him. I was still deciding when he yelled at me to shine the flashlight down the stairs so he could see. I started down the stairs after him. They went down much farther than I thought, and it became warmer and warmer the further down we went. When we finally reached the bottom, I was holding back what threatened to be a massive anxiety attack. We were farther beneath the church than I thought we'd be, and it was hot, muggy, and difficult to breathe. Hoping to get this over with as fast as possible, I swung the flashlight around the chamber, hoping to reveal its hidden treasure. What I saw there, I can never describe, though I have tried many times. The room was entirely empty, save for 2 things. One was a desk in the corner, much like the one in the pastor's office. The second was another statue. This one was roughly 12 feet tall, and remains to this day the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. To put it mildly, it was some sort of demon. It towered over us, and as such I could only see the bottom of its jaw from where I was. It was looking directly ahead of it, at the staircase we had just ascended. Its tail was long and swept around the entire room. There wasn't a lot of room to move. It had claws, like any modern depiction of a demon, and as I moved around the chamber to view its profile, I noticed it had horns as well. Neither Jamie nor I spoke as we shuffled around the room, our backs to the wall as far away from the demon as physically possible. I stepped carefully over the tail as I made my way to its back and came around to the other side of the statue. I couldn't take my eyes from it. I couldn't trust it. If the statue upstairs seemed to bleed, what could this one do? As I eyed the talons on the gigantic stone feet, Jamie broke the silence. Can you even believe this shit? His voice was coming from the other side of the room. I searched the darkness for the weak glow of his lighter, and was relieved to see it moving towards me. I turned my flashlight upward to shine it on the side of the demon's head. The horns had to be at least a foot tall. As I brought it down to see where Jamie was, I hit my arm on something hard. Ow, my head! Jamie squeaked as my flashlight fell to the ground and rolled under the desk. God damn it, Jamie, I whispered in a panic. I dropped to my knees and felt around under the desk. It's not my fault you cracked me on the head. I stood back up with the flashlight to see Jamie trying to relight his lighter. But it wasn't that stopped me dead. I will forever be frozen in that moment. I don't know why I couldn't speak, couldn't scream, couldn't move. All I could feel was my own internal descent into madness. As I had moved the beam of light up to Jamie's face, I had seen another face right next to his. The demon's. The statue was bent down and turned to the side, its head mere inches from Jamie's, and it was staring at me. I cannot describe its face, and I'm not sure my mind ever will let me remember it in detail. It shook me to my core in a literal sense. My body was having a dark, violent, visceral reaction to this impossibility. Jamie finally noticed the flashlight shaking in my hand and turned to see what I was looking at. It wasn't until he started screaming that I was shaken from my paralysis. I dropped the flashlight, Jamie dropped everything else, and we ran. We took the stairs 2 and 3 at a time, Jamie pushing me up ahead of him. Halfway up I slipped and we both went tumbling down halfway to the bottom. In that horrible moment we heard the grinding of stone against stone, and we knew the statue was moving. Jamie screamed, but I was mute, too horrified to make a sound. We got up and kept climbing, never taking our eyes off the small light above us, our only salvation now. We were almost to the top when we first heard it on the stairs. It was so large and heavy that the entire staircase shook with the impact. Terrified that the stairs would come crashing down and we would be left alone with it below, we jumped the last 3 steps and Jamie pushed me up out of the trapdoor. He climbed out after me and tried to slam the trapdoor shut, but it was unmoving. We could hear a deafening thunder on the staircase as the demon slowly climbed the steps. I helped Jamie try to push the trapdoor closed, and for the first time noticed the symbols on the bottom of the wood, the same as those on the front door. Before I could begin to comprehend this, I noticed the statue first penetrate the shaft of light on the staircase below. It was coming. Jamie saw it too, and pulled me to a standing position while pointing at the front door. We both ran at it as hard as we could, but when we hit it, it didn't budge. We tried again, but it was unsympathetic to our crisis. "Katie, the windows." We ran to the closest one, and tried to climb up the wall to get out, but the windows were too high. The thunder from below was getting louder, closer. It was more than halfway up the stairs. We tried to climb on the rotting pews to reach the windows, but they crumbled under our weight. "I'll push you out. Give me your foot," Jamie yelled over the sound bellowing from below. I shook my head. I wanted to, God, I wanted to, but I couldn't leave him. I couldn't leave Jamie to face that thing alone. We both looked over at the door again. Our only chance was to keep trying to break it down. We stumbled back into the aisle and ran at the front door with everything we had. I thought I felt it move. We backed up even further and ran at it again. This time the impact knocked me backwards into the aisle, and Jamie barely stayed on his feet. He looked at me in horror, and I turned around to see the stone horns rising up from the darkness of the trapdoor, 3 feet from where I sat. We were going to die here. I stood up, refusing to turn around again. I knew that the next step it took would bring its head into the room, and the thought of seeing its face again had me running at the door with every last bit of strength I had. Jamie reached it at the same time, and I felt it give way as we crashed through the threshold and landed outside the church. Jamie had picked me up off the ground before I could think to move, and we were running toward the train tracks at an Olympic sprint. We could still hear the thundering on the stairs, no matter how far we got from the church. Every step echoed through the woods like a gunshot, until they stopped. It was in the church. I had no idea if we had run in the right direction, or if we would be forever lost in those woods. It was now dark outside, and the temperature was dropping fast. I was beginning to panic that we would never find the tracks again when I noticed Jamie wasn't next to me anymore. I turned around in a panic to find him sprawled on the ground a few yards behind me. He had tripped over one of the rails. He was up and running down the tracks before I could even ask if he was okay. We ran until we couldn't anymore. Our running eventually slowed down to a jog, and the jog to a walk. We hadn't spoken. Neither of us had any idea what to say, and it wasn't until we had both gotten our breath back that one of us finally broke the silence. "How long have we been on the tracks?" Jamie's voice had an edge of barely suppressed fear. I looked at his wrist and noticed his watch was missing. "It didn't take us this long to find that place. Or did it? Do you think maybe we went the wrong way? Jamie asked hesitantly. I couldn't afford to think like that. If we had somehow gotten turned around and ran the wrong way down the tracks, then we were deeper into the woods than ever. No, we went the right way, I said to convince myself. That thing, Jamie started. I thought it was a statue, but maybe it was some crazy undiscovered giant reptile that was like hibernating when we woke it up. So we were going to delude ourselves into thinking that there was a scientific explanation for this. I understood why, but I just couldn't accept it. Yeah, I said slowly. Did you see the weird writing on the front door? It was on the trapdoor too. Do you think it was keeping it down there? Because, Jamie, all those doors are open now. Well, if it's an animal, words mean nothing to it anyway. Yeah, if... I trail off, hoping he would challenge my implication. He didn't. I could tell this was something Jamie's mind wouldn't accept, but he hadn't seen its face. Not like I had. It was no animal. It was made of stone. It was something sinister and anciently evil, and it had seen me. Had seen right down into my soul. It was aware of me, and I was aware of it. And now it was free. Whatever had been keeping it beneath the church had been awkwardly destroyed by Jamie and me. That thing was free to walk the woods and go God knows where. We walked in silence for another half hour until Jamie suddenly stopped short and started yelling. Here! We're here! He booked it down the tracks toward a swarm of flashlights, and I followed close behind him. As soon as Jamie reached his parents, he collapsed, while I ran into my mother's arms and cried like a child. I couldn't hold it together any longer. The police report says we were found at 4 a.m., by our sense of time about 3 hours after the sun had set. We had spent less than an hour in the chapel, and yet we seemed to have lost 10 hours there. We never told anyone where we had actually been, or that we had found the lost city of Deepwood. We simply said we went for a walk to the lake and got lost in the woods. My family left Middlesbrough the following Monday, 2 days ahead of schedule. My father had another store to open, and there was really no reason to wait. Jamie didn't come to say goodbye to me, and after we left Middlesbrough, I never saw him again. I kept a copy of the police report to remember him. Over the following year, Middlesbrough slowly disappeared. At first, I could just feel the memory fading unnaturally from my mind. My parents couldn't remember that we had ever been there, which scared me more than anything else. I taped the police report to the ceiling over my bed so that Jamie would be the first and last thing I thought about every day. Next, the Middlesbrough City website disappeared, as did that of the local paper and the town's 2 public schools. The store my dad helped open in 2002 also disappeared from the company's website. After that, I could never find any mention of Middlesbrough anywhere online ever again. Over the years, I searched public records for Jamie's full name and found nothing. I hired someone to illegally search private records, and he came up empty too. In the end, the only proof that Jamie ever existed at all was the police report with his name on it. And then, nothing was left. One day, the paper I had taped to my ceiling for so many years was blank. I remember what it was and what it looked like before, but now it's just an old weathered piece of blank paper. All that remains of Middlesbrough and the people who lived there are my memories, and this is why I am writing this story down and uploading it to the internet. Once it's on the internet, it can never die, right? Or perhaps one day it will just disappear, and you won't remember ever seeing it, and I won't remember ever writing it. And I can only hope that this ended with Middlesbrough. If it has moved on to other towns, who would know? Who would even remember? I wish I had answers, but all I have are questions.